And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So, to start off, now, one of the biggest companies in the world, Apple, has been in the scene for several decades from the time when Steve Jobs introduced the first ever Mac computer and so forth. But where are they now in terms of what they plan to do in the next decade? Now, obviously, under the helm, under Tim Cook's direction, they've been able to, you know, continue to grow uh, to the point of being uh, has a net worth of in the north of $2 trillion, which is not an easy thing to do for any company at that. And obviously, from what they accomplish is, you're only as good as what you have achieved in the past. But the question is, what will they do in the near future? And obviously, as Apple, which is a publicly listed company, investors are, looking in the horizon as to what will happen to Apple here, what will be their direction moving forward. Now, obviously, Apple is known for making smartphones, the iPhones, right? Which has, you know, catapulted them in the top of the marketplace and so forth. But despite achieving big success, obviously in the past few years, the market has been slowly, slowing down in terms of, you know, almost practically everyone in the world has a handheld phone, whether you're an Android user or an iOS. Obviously, Apple would prefer you to be an iOS user. But besides that, question is, what will they do? Will they continue, expanding or improving or iterating their iPhone devices here? Or will they look onto other aspects as well? So let's take a closer look here. So the article from businessinsider.com as mentioned here. So it says here, that's right. Okay, there you go. It says here that Apple is planning to look at other aspects in terms of shifting to VR headsets of virtual reality, actually even AR, augmented reality. Also, their focus on their iPhone technologies would follow similar to what Samsung is doing right now, which they've already released a foldable phone. So you might expect to see a foldable iPhone in the very near future. And obviously, something that I think many of us are interested to see is what do you call this? The first ever Apple car. Now, is that going to happen anytime soon? Well, we have to wait and see. But let's take a closer look. Now, obviously, at the helm here is the CEO, which is Tim Cook, which has proven, he has done a remarkable job of innovating in terms of, managing the company as it is, regardless of its, success and failures in retrospect. So taking over from Steve Jobs way back in 2011, I think. So for almost 2 decades now, almost a decade, sorry, my mistake. Almost a decade, they are able to successfully expand their business in terms of not just smartphone, making smartphone devices, but also wearable products, namely the Apple Watch as well as the AirPods, right? So none of those I'm using currently, sad to say. But anyway, not only that, they are able to shift or go into a fast market, growing market in terms of digital services, streaming videos and music. Obviously, streaming video competing with the likes of Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. Then music, obviously, they're competing with their own popular streaming that's music app of Spotify here, which is, one can be construed as a anti-competitive strategy that they're doing, but obviously as a business, it's only incumbent for them to diversify in terms of where their uh, success will be. So whether it be focusing primarily on smartphones or going to other industries as well. So the key question here is, despite all the glamours or the success that they've reached so far, what will 10 years or 5-10 years look like? So so first off, speaking of technology, obviously they're focusing on smart glasses now. Obviously, other companies have tried. Google has tried, but have failed miserably. Obviously, putting a twist in terms of how Apple perceives wearable devices. So they have success in terms of Apple Watch and then Apple AirPods. So it's going to be interesting. But the key point here, as according to several experts, whether analysts, high-profile tech designers, and even former Apple employees, the key question here is the future of Apple is critical in terms of the timing. Timing in terms of when to diversify, when to introduce a new product, and so forth. So let's start first with, what do you call this? Next possible computing device. So let's see here. Yeah, there you go. So in terms of computing device, Apple exploring virtual and augmented reality, as mentioned, VR or AR as mentioned, headsets, similar to how Oculus for Facebook works. And obviously, there have been several companies who's been in the industry, with various degrees of success and failures. So going to this is going to take a lot of investment, R&D, to be able to, reach the heights that, Apple is expecting that they would be. And as mentioned, Facebook, Microsoft, and even Sony has struggled to, conquer this realm. Obviously, this is a very niche, niche market in a sense, and typically it only applies for gaming in this case, for Oculus, and obviously with the issue that Facebook is trying to gain your data information, private information, is a totally separate matter. But the question here is, will it be enough for Apple to shift their focus and go into this route? Now, obviously, they could also look at other things, and one of the main contention here is the change in leadership is another issue that they need to keep in mind at the back of their minds, or at their peripheral, so to speak. And it's not just the leadership in terms of design, because the iconic designer Jony Ive, I don't know how to pronounce it, who has been with the company for 30 years, has already left last year, 2019. He's known for developing or shaping most of the popular products such as the iMac, iPhone, and the iWatch, Apple Watch here. So question is, who will succeed him in terms of future development here? And I don't think Apple has a is going to have a problem. Obviously, they have some very good people, many good people working under the company. But one of my key questions here that I also like to pose is, what will happen in the next few years is, what will happen when Tim Cook retires eventually? Now, let's look here. Now, looking at his age right now. So right now, he's currently 60 years old. So, he's getting up in age, if you look at it. But obviously, he's still doing a tremendous job for the company. So he will be in the helm for quite some time. But eventually, when he do retires, what will happen to the company? Is there a succession plan they have already placed, or are they grooming someone already in the near future, so that in the inevitability, like what happened with Steve Jobs, that Tim Cook was already in place, will that be the same case when eventually Tim Cook does retire in the near future? Now, obviously, aside from understanding who will be the leadership here is, Tim Cook is one of the best, or the best, in terms of leading a company, like Apple, reaching to heights like no other companies have reached before. And getting paid. How much is he worth? Yeah. So his salary is in the north of $15 million. That is, if you compare to other CEOs, is he underpaid or overpaid? But at the end of the day, it's salary alone is not the be all and end all for Tim Cook here. And guess what? He is now a billionaire with all the years that he has accumulated in terms of salary as well as vested interest in the company as well here. So next. So apart from the question in leadership, hopefully that is already there's a plan in place already. And the next key question here is what will happen to their next iPhone? Now, obviously, they've been iterating their devices for several years now, which is, they've been making incremental improvements, so to speak, in terms of size, screen, uh, different features, and so forth. But they haven't made the technological advancement that like what we're accustomed to, right? And in the case of the iPhone, there were rumors that they were into going to develop foldable smartphones, like as mentioned, like how Samsung has already developed one, and they're already in the second iteration with the Galaxy Z Fold 2, I think. It's very expensive if you look at it. Anyway, so in January there was Apple had developed a prototype foldable smartphone. So obviously it's not for everyone, right? But despite its limited reception or limited market, obviously Apple is known for their premium products. So, venturing into this realm makes sense for them. And despite the foldable phones, which only account less than 5% of the high-end market phones by 2023. So this is something that Apple should focus on. And it makes sense, right? So it's not just catering to the affluent, but to those uber rich that money is not an issue to them, that they would even consider this, not just for individual people, but for business people who needs a multifunctional, multi-purpose phone that serves as a tablet, could serve as your computer in a sense. And obviously with the background or with the expertise that Apple has, they have a knack for miniaturizing new technologies and developing interfaces that uh, works well with the new types of computing devices here. So that's what they're betting on, and hopefully that they'll be successful in that realm as well. Now, obviously their success, not just on VR and in other aspects as well, will hinge on the timing as mentioned. So when they shift to a different market, when and where they open up the new markets will determine their success already. And another question that they mentioned is, will it be embraced more widely as easily as when they first initially introduced the first iPhone, right? Otherwise, if you come too early, no one would adopt your products. If you come too late, others would have already been in the marketplace, competing with the likes of what Samsung was doing with the foldable phone here. But obviously, as their track record suggests, based on the success of their iPhone, iPad, and even the iPod, which is fine enough, I was able to own one of those iPod early way back in the 2000s, right? It's a music device, but they introduced, I think, the later edition with a video component, so it's technically like a smartphone with a video device that you can listen to it. But at the time, I think I remembered you had to save it with your iTunes, and you have to convert those files to MP4 before you can even upload it. So it's a very mishmash process, which was not easy. Not like if you're Android, you just simply upload it, connect it with your data cable, and you are able to transfer files quickly. Anyway, so Apple success, as mentioned, in new territories will be key here. So with the likes of the foldable phones, if they're able to, to continue what they're doing here and focus on what they're good at, which is, their key competencies or core competencies is Apple's design and product development organization functions as a team and not as individuals here. And obviously, where they go next is, can one can only guess. But I think moving into the car industry or making cars makes sense for them, but obviously they cannot. We've talked about this in previous discussions that it makes sense for them to partner, which is what they're planning to do. They were in talks with Hyundai, but I don't know where's that going, or they're just shopping in terms of whom they can partner it or if it makes sense for them. Obviously, there were reports that initially they were in talks with partnering with Tesla, but obviously Elon Musk's control over Tesla, doesn't mix well with the control also over at Apple side as well here. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, continuing with technology as mentioned. So with the pandemic here, now many companies have been trying to adopt a cashless transactions in terms of your stores. Amazon has already launched this in the United States a few years back. I saw it in a video in Linus Tech Tips where he visited an Amazon store in Seattle where he was able to pay, buy products, without cash, just by scanning. No, it wasn't scanned. They had detector scanners all over the store, and it was able to detect what items you purchased or what you took in your basket. And then when you leave, it automatically deducts in your Amazon account. So what's different here? Obviously, at the time, it was pre-pandemic. So, adapters for those businesses type are not as easily to adapt. But with what's happening right now with the pandemic and still ongoing, it makes sense for Amazons to push again the store without the physical store without paying or paying without cash here. And they're able to launch it in outside of the United States, in particular in where is it? In Britain, right? So shoppers won't have to line up anymore, which is a big plus for cashless payment. And then they could just grab their products or produce in this case and walk out the door. Easy as that. Now, obviously, how accurate it is and so forth. But, the concept now makes much more sense now than ever before because of the situation here of maintaining social distancing, avoiding physical contact with the cash register or cash person and so forth. So the store is going to be called Amazon Fresh, which is located in Ealing, London. So this will allow consumers to basically come in, pick up the products that you need, and then pick up the items that you need to buy, and then simply walk out without having to pay the cash register, which is, I think that's something many businesses needs to start adopting. It's not just for fresh produce, but for different retail stores worldwide. I think makes it more easier. No need to line up, but obviously you have to register an account in the first place. But that's the price you pay for convenience here. So what will happen here is items will actually appear on your virtual receipt that is linked to your Amazon account, which will be reflected later on. So let's see here. There you go. So as mentioned, so it was used already, as mentioned earlier, that the technology is already implemented in the United States. It's just the first time that they're implementing it outside of the United States. And obviously they use scales, sensor technology, shelf cameras, and even a number of other technologies to track items whenever an item has been taken off. Now, is it foolproof? That's why they're using different technologies here to make an accurate assessment in terms of, let's say, if you took an item from the shelf and then you return it, does it mean they deduct right away, or is it by the time you leave the premises here? So they use also smart shopping carts that would track goods whenever they are added, and shoppers would be automatically charged the moment that they remove the grocery bags. Another is obviously the Amazon is not really really on the high-tech shopping experience, especially in the United Kingdom. Obviously, other companies has already been trying to adopt the same technology. You have Tesco, which is big in London, Britain, as well as Sainsbury. They've already tried to replicate the same technologies now. Obviously, adoption is another big issue. It varies in terms of success, but with what's happening now, I think it's easier for consumers to adopt the technology now. Now, for the United States, e-commerce will try to compete directly with Britain's popular grocery chains here now. Is it a long-term solution? Will it be a successful model? Eventually, people would, you know, with the vaccine around the corner, if people are vaccinated, people feel safe going out, they would, go back to their normal routine in terms of, buying their products personally. I think people still prefer buying items themselves. Now, obviously, the convenience of buying online is tremendous, but at the end of the day, we thrive in social, interaction with talking to people, meeting people, seeing people, right? So not just cooped up at home here, but I think offering that option is, I think, going to be tantamount here, because if ever, hopefully not soon, but in the future, if another crisis or a pandemic were to happen, you know businesses already have in place a system that that would have a smooth transition when people can go out again. They have an option, not only just pick the items if they have to go to the store, or it could be delivered to their doorsteps like what Amazon has been doing. So that's why they're hedging their bets, I think, in terms of offering delivery service as well as offering their products in stores, but with less interactions with people. But obviously another downside to that is, the question is, what would happen to people's jobs, which will be replaced by technology here. So that's another discussion on another day here. Anyway, actually last week we just discussed some of the CEOs around the world, in particular in the United States, are somewhat overpaid, to put it mildly. And obviously, being a CEO, you're entrusted into a big position, entrusted with responsibilities in terms of directing the company's direction, and taking care of the interests of your, not just the employees, but your shareholders as well. And with the pandemic that happened last year in 2020, some have thrived, some have not. And one of those CEOs that did not, I would say, did not thrive because of how it impacted the industry, in particular the air travel industry. Boeing CEO, to my astonishment when I read this article, was the CEO of Boeing was awarded a 21 million compensation package for the year 2020. So the CEO is Dave Calhoun, who was awarded, I mentioned, 21 million for his work last year. Now he gave up 3.6 million in salary and bonuses after the pandemic hit. But the question is, why was he awarded 21 million? Did he do a great job in terms of managing the problem where they had to halt productions, and obviously airlines were stopped ordering because there were no passengers traveling, so they did not need new airlines here. And the fact they were they were embroiled in the 737 Max, I forgot. Yeah, the 73 Max fiasco, where they tried to produce new airplanes, but there were technical issues which caused the two crashes before, and they had to stop the production, and so forth. Anyway, so in terms of performance, right? So obviously CEO typically are given a base package of their salaries, as well as equity that vests over time, and that is typically based on company performance targets and other metrics as well. So question is, did he deserve those bonuses? And I would say bonuses, packages, or compensation as being the CEO. Now, obviously, Boeing had to lay off not just hundreds or even thousands of employees just to be able to stay afloat. And then you're paying your CEO in the north of 20 million here. Now, does that seem fair? Now, obviously, some may say it's not, it's unfair, but obviously, stewarding a company is a big big ask as mentioned. But the question is, the optics doesn't look good if you're the CEO while the rest of the employees are suffering. Some are being laid off, in this case fired, so they don't have a job while your position is safe and sound, while the company is floundering. Obviously it's not just Boeing. I'm sure Airbus is on the same boat. Hotels around the world are suffering. Does it mean you reward your CEO based on what's happening last year, or is it their fault to begin with? Obviously you'll be dealt with severe problems on a daily basis, more particularly last year. So question is, what do you do in spite of that is the key question here. Now what's interesting here is Calhoun was appointed right the year before the pandemic took the global economy, which for him would be a very fortuitous event. And the fact that the Boeing reported a record annual loss of almost 12 billion. So losing 12 billion and then you're rewarded for for your salary of 20 million. And the cancellation of their sales of their jetliners is prompting thousands of job cuts, which is that's, I don't know, I have a problem with that. If you're going to pay your CEO and then you have to fire the rest of your employees, I don't see the benefit out of that, because eventually when the pandemic subsides, people would go back to working, and if you need those key people, by then you have lost your very crucial people to other companies here. And according to the article, the Calhoun's total compensation here, as mentioned, is including 7 millions worth of stock if the company hits milestones, including returning the 77 MAX to service here. Now, obviously, there's still a long ways to go before that happens, and obviously releasing other planes. The long-awaited 77X is another, and obviously, time will only tell. And another package is now he was already paid, for leaving his previous job at Blackstone Group in the sum of 10 million here. Now, obviously, handling the situation Boeing here is a big daunting task. Now, whether you agree or not, paying 21 million for a CEO, when the company did terribly in terms of losing as much as 12 billion, doesn't seem reasonable or logical in this case. But anyway, if the company is willing to pay that amount, if you're the CEO, go for it. If the board of directors sees fit that they need to reward their CEO for a job well done, good for them. Anyway, bridging to car or automotive. Now, obviously, if you've been driving around, you're using your infotainment screen. Typically, what's built in a vehicle or car is somewhat miniature. It's considered small, right? Typically around 7 inches, or for some even more, or even less, or even no screen to begin with. Guess what? Android is introducing a new split screen support so that it can be implemented in vehicles in the future. Now, obviously, this will only apply to widescreen displays. The point here is so you can simultaneously run 2 apps at the same time. So why 2 apps, you wonder? So typically, you're using Google Maps is one, or maybe you're running Spotify on the background on another, so you can use it interchangeably. Now, is it perfect in terms of their application? It's not, but it's better than nothing here. Now, offering the brand new split screen option is starting to become more frequently available in Android Auto users here. Now, obviously, for many car manufacturers, they've been trying to create their own infotainment, but they're failing tremendously. I think it's high time for them to partner up with Android or iOS, or in this case, Apple, to have a standardized infotainment system that it's easier to plug in. Typically, when you have your phone or even your tablet, you just plug it in or connect it with Bluetooth. That it's seamless, like when you're trying to connect to your desktops here. Or let me see. There you go. As mentioned, so the point here is your primary app will still take a large portion of your Android Auto display. while the smaller right-sided section will host to your secondary application here. Now, whether that's a big deal or not, for me, bigger is always better and more enjoyable experience when you're driving is always good, especially now people are starting to go out again, going to work, doing your regular mundane chores and so forth. So it's a nice time-saving feature that many people would appreciate here. Now, the implementation here, as mentioned, is going to be 70-30, which we would have liked, as I mentioned in the article, that it would have been nice 50-50 ratio, equal screen footing would have been better. But hey, if you have a larger screen, larger, say 7 inches, I think you can make do with that as well here. And obviously, hopefully we can see it implemented in other vehicles as well. So the update here is suggesting that the split screen mode is forced when enabled. So you can switch UIs or switch apps from one side to another. So in terms of software application, they needs a lot of work. So hopefully, with updates, they can improve the interface as well. Now, obviously, the downside here, or the problem here is it can be distracting to you in terms of driving. While driving, you're trying to fidget with the device, touching the screen. You want to change the music. You want to change the they call this. You're looking for a location and so forth, which can be a safety issue. Hopefully, they can make it more intuitive. Maybe hopefully in the future, they, instead of touchscreen, it would be seamless, air-based anymore, air gestures or something like that. Or they could incorporate it with the steering wheel, or I don't know. Or maybe like augmented reality, like Apple is trying to mention, go into later on. But the key here is, the smooth usage of their interface is always important here. Anyway, next, speaking of artificial intelligence, now obviously some may fear it, some are excited as to what the AI involves us in the future. Well, in terms of technology here, AI has a lot of positives here, especially in the fields of arts and letters in particular. So how can AI be used to benefit, people here, in particular in research? So they use or apply machine learning skills in the field of arts, wherein a team from the University of Washington wanted to see if a computer vision system could learn to tell what is being played on a piano just from an overhead view of the keys and the player's hand. So what they're trying to do here is replicate, playing music just by seeing or watching someone play the piano in this case. So let's see here. There you go. So meaning, the company is Audio, AUDEO. So the system trained by Eli Schlieserman, Kun Su, and Shulong Liu, as mentioned, watches video of piano playing. The first extracts a piano roll-like simple sequence of process, and then it adds expressions in the form of length and strength of the presses, and lastly polishes it up for input into a MIDI synthesizer for output. So let's see here what the process looks like here. Yeah, there you go. So as you can see here on the left side, you can see that the actual performance here is being recorded, and then they try to convert that and try to replicate it and to generate their own music here. So similar to what happens here on the left side, the actual person, playing the video, and then, the AI is trying to replicate and create their own music here, which is kind of, should musicians be scared of this? I don't think so. I mean, it's a good test of how far AI has gone so far, but obviously that's not going to replace, musicians or any artist in the very near future. It just shows that what are its possibilities in a sense. Maybe something down the line that we might need this type of technology, or even interactions with people, especially in the service industry here and so forth. Anyway, the point here is, as mentioned, according to Schlieserman, to create music that sounds like it could be played in a musical performance was previously believed to be impossible. Now, obviously, the algorithm needs to be figured out first, so it's not yet perfect, the system. So the features, as mentioned, in the video frames that are related to generating music, and it needs to imagine. Now, obviously, imagination is only built in for human beings. I don't know AI can do that, or anytime soon for that matter. So the question is, the sound that's happening in between the video frames obviously requires a system that is both precise and imaginative. So that's the part of the learning process here. So how can they be precise in one sense and be imaginative, so that when you play the music, it sounds like a music, not a robotics type, or doesn't make sense at all. So achieving music, is a surprise, or that's something that we can look forward to in the future. And not only that, another technology that can be used for AI or machine learning is through research, which is kind of surprising, by computational unfolding, meaning paper folding. Okay, so this is used in ancient letters too delicate to handle. So as mentioned, not years, decades or centuries ago, where there was no computer way back. So how did they ensure that the letters that they send are not tampered with? So they fold it in several folds. If you try to unfold it in the proper manner, it would tear itself, so people would know if it has been tampered with and so forth. So the question here is, how do you unlock it? So I think that's the first ever password that was incorporated in the paper folding way back then. So here we have an MIT team that's looking here. Let's see. So the MIT team here is looking at lock letters from 17th century. That's how back it is. So intricately folded and sealed, that to remove the letter and flatten it might prematurely damage them. So let's see here. Not this one. There you go. So they're using X-ray technology, you can see here. So this is actually folded paper here. Now, obviously, if you try to unfold them, it would be destroyed here in a matter of seconds here. So question, they're using technology here, as mentioned, AI, to scan through the process here to different layers, so that they can ascertain as to what is the content of each of the pages here and what's being mentioned here. So they're trying to see here, so when it's unfolded, so they can try to ascertain what the text here, and obviously, if they're able to do it successfully, it would give us better insight as to what was in that content here in the early stages there. And the approach was to use X-ray the letters and set a new advanced algorithm to work deciphering the resulting imagery. So it's not easy. Obviously, if it were easy, they would have done it long time ago here. Okay, there was a paper article as mentioned. I think it's this one. So if you're like some light reading, so there was a paper published, Unlocking History Through Automated Virtual Unfolding of Sealed Documents Imaged by X-ray Microtomography. It's my first time hearing this. So the study pertains here, as mentioned, so demonstrating methods of 4-letter packets from Renaissance Europe, reading the contents of one unopened letter for the first time. So using the results of virtual unfolding, we situate our findings with a novel letter locking categorization chart based on our study of 250,000 historical letters. So obviously, get to see more information on what happened in the past with technology. So that's one of the positives or advantages of having better technologies at present here. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing more of this technology here. And as mentioned here, the algorithm ends up doing an impressive job at separating the layers despite the extreme thinness and tiny gaps between them. Now, how accurate is this, which will be the main problem here? Now, obviously, they have to do several testings here before, or was it already done already to validate the process here? So the question here is sometimes less than the resolution of the scan, according to MIT's ethics domain, as mentioned here. So this is something interesting, obviously, maybe centuries later also, when people look back, what are some of the ways to people communicate? Now, obviously, less and less people are using letters here, using more text messaging or using social media platforms and so forth. Maybe you could find another technology to put, what do you call this? Unravel or break the code, which is, typically if you're using Telegram or using iOS messaging services, it's encrypted in a sense here. Anyway, next we have here for some local news. So if you've been wondering what are your plans for this summer period, To Go here is offering a sail and stay package if you want to go to Boracay for only under 5,000 pesos here. And To Go's latest offer is only available until May 31st or until supplies last here. So let's see here. Hey, where is it? There you go. So it's a limited offer as mentioned from To Go Travel. So it's a budget-friendly 3 days, 2 nights travel package to Boracay for 5,000 pesos. Why did they just say 5,000? Why 4,999? Anyway, so it's a round trip ticket from Batangas going to Caticlan. Round trip ticket. So you're given 50 kilograms of baggage allowance with onboard meals. Now take note, traveling from Batangas to Caticlan will take roughly half a day, 10 hours of boat time. And you'll be staying at a standard room at La Carmela de Boracay. So that's 3 days and 2 nights as mentioned. Yeah. So now obviously the purpose here is with the sail and stay is to make it affordable, safe, and convenient for passengers to experience the crystal waters and white sand beaches of Boracay here. So it's only available limited time while supplies last, according to the To Go Assistant Vice President for Marketing, Blessy Cruz. Now, check-in is until end of the year, so you cannot wait until next year if you wanna postpone it that long. Now, the question here is it a sound decision if you're going to travel right now? Obviously, with the cases that's been, going up, especially in Pasay area, and going to a different place, obviously you need to get tested first, and going through the ordeal is one thing. Let's say you passed the test, and then once you get there, you're supposed to wear, social distancing is reasonable, but wearing face masks, face shields while going to the beach, how are you going to enjoy that experience if they don't if they cannot guarantee the safety? If you're tested negative, then they should create a bubble of sorts that it makes sense for travelers that once they go there that feel free to enjoy themselves. Otherwise, I would hold off and maybe wait until next year before I even consider traveling, going to beaches and so forth. But obviously, it's not the same. Like I think we discussed it last time also. The tourism is promoting not just in Boracay but also in Palawan, Bohol. That there are certain pockets that it's isolated, so there is a travel bubble that you could apply, in particular in Palawan, I think. So unless you can guarantee the safety and not having to worry that you have to wear a mask or face shields while enjoying the beach, is going to be a challenge there. So interested travelers, as mentioned here, can book for the package online. So there are several payments. You can pay debit or credit card here. And then you can also do it over-the-counter payments at the banks. And according to the Aklan provincial government, as mentioned here. Now, negative swab test, as mentioned, is still required for travel to Boracay. And you can get tested here. So COVID-19 RT or rapid testing PCR test is available in the Philippine Children's Medical Center for only 750 pesos. Now, how accurate is that? Will you be required to quarantine yourself before you travel and so forth? I think there's a lot of things that needs to be ironed out first before people can be comfortable enough, you know, to the point that you can bring your children with you. I think that should be the goal of any businesses here, especially for the government, if they're trying to boost the economy again here. Well, hopefully. And finally, for some interesting story now, you've been wondering that 3D printing has been with us for quite some time. 3D printer is like a printer, right? Instead of just printing text, it can print any device that you desire, whether it's small or big. I didn't think that it could be print big things, and in this case, according to Reuters, printing a house is now possible here. As mentioned, they were able to 3D print a house, at the next level. In particular, a New York firm was able to achieve that. So typically, homes are built brick by brick, right? And it takes a long time. So it takes days, even months for some, right? So a house was built in Calverton, New York, and was constructed by scan by scan, using the walls made using a giant three-dimensional printer here. So you can see that in a bit. So built by a construction firm, SQ4D. So let's see here. There you go. So the company is SQ4D here, and their aim is to show the public and the industry what was possible here. So the company is putting up one for sale. So a still to be built house in a nearby town in Riverhead, which has been listed on the property site in Zillow at $300,000. That's 20 million pesos here. So it's not cheap. But in terms of the details here, as mentioned, the detached garage, not detached house. Sorry. So the detached garage will cover some 1,400 square feet or 130 square meters, with foundational footings, foundations and slabs along with the walls, and will be entirely made with 3D printer here. So let's see here. So the aim here, as mentioned here, is the aim here is to construct the machine to go around and follow your floor plan each pass as we go by. And you can see here how it looks. And according to Kirk Anderson, the director of operations for SQ4D, is looking promising, right? So they took the idea of plastic 3D desktop printing and wanted to make it in a larger scale, and instead, in this case, spit out concrete. So, it looks promising, and obviously one of the advantages here is, the time it takes, and as mentioned here, they say it's 30% cheaper than overall than compared to home built using standard construction methods here. Now, in terms of printing, it only took about 48 hours here. Now, obviously, you can see the house here. It's not too complex here, and it's low rise here. It only has one ground floor here. But is it possible to create a house that has multi-story, 2-3 stories high, and so forth? And how about if you want to create a basement here? Obviously, you need to create a foundation here. Something that what do you call this? That we can look forward to in the future here. And obviously, the point here is issue could be is replacing labor intensive people and extrude concrete much faster than they can be before. Now, obviously, adopting this would have a significant effect on the typical construction workers that is used to placing bricks in building houses here. Now, will everyone be too thrilled about it? As mentioned, so not everyone in the construction industry is too thrilled that the prospect of introducing a new process, in this case a game changer in a sense in the future, will receive mixed feedbacks. And obviously the one who's affected is the one who's directly involved in the industry as well. Now, obviously, people are unprepared for how this is going to change the construction industry as a whole, according to Anderson. So this is the beginning, and it's just scratching the surface right here. And for me, looking at it is it looks promising here, and you can imagine it. You can replicate it anywhere in the world, especially here in our climate. where it's somewhat warm, and then during the rainy days, if you can build a house in a faster rate compared to traditional methods, I'm all for it here. Anyway, that concludes our discussion for today. So thank you for joining me again, as always. If you have any questions regarding the topics today, I'll leave in the link in the description below. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week. Same time, same channel. Take care. Bye-bye.